When I eventually got out of prison, life still felt hopeless for me. I'd let my family down for being arrested. I had no idea what I wanted to do.
When you think of Ozzy Osbourne, what comes to mind is probably the quintessential rock and roll rogue. He's the man who bit the head off a bat, the lead singer of Black Sabbath who inadvertently invented heavy metal, and the lovable, shambolic star of reality television. But peel away the layers of mythology and mischief, and what you find is something altogether more endearing. A man who is, at his core, a fan. And not just a casual fan. Ozzy Osbourne is an unashamedly enthusiastic music lover who speaks about his favorite singers with the kind of reverence usually reserved for saints or sporting heroes. Music saved my life, he often says, and you believe him. Born into grinding poverty in post-war Birmingham, he might have gone down any number of paths that didn't end on a stage, microphone in hand.
I had job after job after job. I could never hold the job down.
Really, there were about 3 or 4 choices when we were teenagers. One was we would either probably go to prison or go in the factories or go in the army.
It's not hyperbole to say that hearing the Beatles transformed him. Their songs weren't just entertainment, they were escape routes, promises of a life far beyond the factory floors of Aston. And at the heart of that promise was John Lennon. It's almost impossible to overstate how much Lennon meant to Ozzy. The first time I heard She Loves You, I thought, what the f*** is this? It was like the world had turned from black and white to color. That moment wasn't just pivotal, it was seismic. Lennon's voice, raw, direct, yet brimming with something intangible, was everything Ozzy hadn't known he needed. There's a genuine sense of gratitude in the way he talks about him, as if Lennon's very existence gave Ozzy permission to dream.
Lennon, all he ever did was make people get up in the morning and greet the day with a better attitude.
But Lennon's influence went beyond the songs. It was the honesty, the vulnerability, the sense that Lennon wasn't just singing to you, but almost from you. I loved how real he was, Ozzy says. He didn't pretend to be anything he wasn't. He wrote about his pain, his mistakes, all the shit he went through. For a kid from Birmingham, struggling to make sense of his own chaotic life, that rawness was nothing short of revolutionary. Of course, you can't talk about Lennon without McCartney. Where Lennon was fire and grit, McCartney was light and melody. Together they created some of the most enduring music of the 20th century, and individually, they were no less impressive.
Then one day I was walking down this road and I heard the Beatles for the first time, and it was like, wow. When I heard She Loves You, a light went up in my head and I was just besotted with them.
For Ozzy, Paul McCartney represents something almost otherworldly. Meeting him was one of the biggest moments of my life, he says, eyes wide even in retrospect. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there thinking, hell, that's Paul McCartney. He's real.
Not let him in. Oh, bloody hell. Hello, darling. How you doing? Oh, yeah, all right, lovely, yeah.
It's not just McCartney's fame that awes Ozzy, it's his sheer, unrelenting talent. The guy can do anything, he says, shaking his head in disbelief. He writes these melodies that stay with you forever. Who else can do that? Who else has been doing it for as long as he has?
Hey, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better.
It's clear that Ozzy doesn't just respect McCartney, he's genuinely inspired by him. There's an almost childlike wonder in the way he describes him, as though McCartney exists on a different plane of existence altogether. Then there's Elton John, another of Ozzy's heroes who managed to become a friend as well. It's not hard to see why Elton appeals to him. Like Ozzy, Elton is larger than life, a man who thrives on spectacle but never lets it overshadow the music. Elton's a genius, Ozzy declares, as though it's the most obvious thing in the world.
I said to Sharon, does this remind you of an Elton song? She said, not really. I said, well, off then.
He's got this incredible voice, and he writes these songs that just get to you. You hear them once, and they're with you forever.
It sort of starts off, Blue Jean Baby, LA
holiday lady, seamstress for the band.
Their collaboration on Ordinary Man was a dream come true for Ozzy. I couldn't believe it when he said yes, he admits, still sounding slightly bewildered. We were in the studio and he starts playing the piano and I'm just sitting there thinking, is this actually happening? The result was a poignant, reflective ballad that showcased not only their mutual respect, but also their shared vulnerability. Elton's been through a lot like I have, Ozzy says.
And as soon as I met him, I felt that there was something special there.
You can hear that in his voice. There's a depth there, a realness, and that's what makes him so special. But while Lennon, McCartney and Elton John are household names, Ozzy's admiration extends to singers who might not have achieved the same level of mainstream recognition. Take Steve Marriott, for example. To many, Marriott is a footnote in the history of rock, known primarily for his work with the Small Faces and Humble Pie. To Ozzy, however, he's nothing short of a legend. Steve Marriott had one of the best voices I've ever heard, he says, his face lighting up at the memory. It was so powerful, so soulful. I used to listen to him and think, how the hell does he do that? Ozzy's memories of touring with Humble Pie are a mix of awe and amusement. I remember watching him on stage and thinking, this guy's too good, he's got to be miming. But he wasn't. He was just that good. Marriott's voice had a rawness, a grit, that spoke to something deep within Ozzy. It wasn't polished or perfect, but it was real, and that authenticity left an indelible mark on him. And then there's Little Richard. If Lennon was the man who made Ozzy dream of being in a band, Little Richard was the one who showed him how much fun it could be. He was wild, Ozzy says, a grin spreading across his face. That energy, that madness, it was infectious. Watching Little Richard perform was like watching a force of nature, and Ozzy soaked it up like a sponge. He didn't give a shit what anyone thought, he says, clearly relishing the memory. He just went out there and did his thing, and you couldn't take your eyes off him. It's not hard to see how Little Richard's uninhibited style influenced Ozzy's own approach to performance. The theatrics, the unpredictability, the sense that anything could happen at any moment, it all traces back to those early rock and roll pioneers. But it wasn't just the showmanship that appealed to Ozzy. He had a amazing voice, he says, leaning forward as if to emphasize the point. People forget that sometimes. They get caught up in the image, but the guy could sing. What's striking about Ozzy's love for these singers is how unpretentious it is. He doesn't analyze their techniques or dissect their lyrics. He simply loves them for what they are. And that love is infectious. When Ozzy talks about Lennon or McCartney or Elton John, you can't help but feel a renewed appreciation for them yourself. It's as if his enthusiasm is a reminder of why music matters in the first place, not as a business or an art form, but as something that moves you, something that makes you feel alive. It's also a reminder of where Ozzy himself came from. For all his success, he's never lost sight of the fact that he was once a kid from Birmingham, dreaming of a world beyond his reach. And in a way, that's what makes his admiration for these singers so compelling. They're not just his heroes, they're his connection to that kid who fell in love with music all those years ago. Even now, after decades in the spotlight, Ozzy speaks about his favorite singers with the kind of wonder that most people reserve for their first concert or their first love. It's not just nostalgia, it's a genuine, unshakable belief in the power of music to change lives. And if there's one thing Ozzy Osbourne knows better than anyone, it's how to change a life, whether it's his own or the millions who've been inspired by him in turn.